Good morning, Linda.
So I want to start first, if we can, on the hostages. Two released, now at an Israeli military base. Can you tell us how they're doing? Can you give us any other detail on what they were treated, how they were treated by Hamas?
As we were coming in, I was listening to the father telling the story of how he was going to kiss and hug his daughter. There are 201 other families that are torn to pieces by this huge tragedy. And of course, we have to do everything we can in order to bring them home. And this is, we're relieved by Yehudit
And I do want to ask you, Lieutenant Colonel, about those other hostages. 201 hostages still being held captive by Hamas from dozens of countries. Do you have any indication about the condition of those still in captivity and any other developments on negotiations for their release?
So we're being very cautious about saying anything, Linda. You can understand it's a very delicate issue, and their safety and well-being, it outrules and is much more important than us reporting to it at this time. Hamas a responsibility for the well-being of all of them. And we're happy to see that the International Committee of the Red Cross did have access, and yesterday were involved in the release. And indeed, we will continue to be cautious in our actions in order to bring them home as soon as possible and get them released, hopefully in safe and sound. Unfortunately, we don't trust Hamas. How can you trust a terrorist organization that butchers babies, abducts, kills, murders, massacres? The unfathomable barbarism of this organization and everything they are doing currently is, I would say, psychological terrorism. So let's try and keep that in the context of this conflict, and that is why Hamas, at the end of this, can never ever be in a position of power to conduct terrorism from the Gaza Strip, using the Gaza Strip as a staging ground for that terrorism against our people.
Lieutenant Colonel, Qatar has been thanked for its role in the hostage negotiations, in the release of these first two hostages. What's Israel's relationship with Qatar like, and how could you work together to bring more hostages home?
I prefer to leave the diplomacy for the diplomats. The IDF is much focused on destroying Hamas's capabilities and making sure that they are pursued, their leaders are hunted down, and the perpetrators of the attack on the October 7th are paid for what they have done, because it's not just an issue of justice to the victims, to the over 1,300 victims of this attack. It's also the people that gave it its power, its instructions, its equipment. So while I understand the interest in Qatar's role in relieving or alleviating some of the challenges that we're facing today, the IDF is very much focused on the boots on the ground. We have recruited so many forces, 300,000 reservists, in order to confront and defeat Hamas. That is the focus of the IDF.
And I want to ask you specifically about the response in terms of the airstrikes in Gaza right now, even hospitals being targeted. Can you explain for us in terms of, last time we spoke, you said the IDF was aiming to reduce civilian casualties. We've since seen babies, children killed day after day. Is the IDF doing everything possible to minimize civilian casualties, and can it do better?
Linda, we do not target hospitals. That's just not true. We are targeting Hamas that are operating in the civilian arena and making it extremely difficult to differentiate. Nevertheless, we are going out of our way in order to minimize civilian harm, and I would add, get civilians and non-combatants out of harm's way. Unfortunately, the fact of the matter is, Hamas will continue to operate within the civilian arena as long as they exist. They will continue to hold the people of Gaza hostage, not only the Israelis and foreign nationals that they have, and they have no regard for human life, Israeli or Palestinian. Our responsibility is first and foremost to protect Israel, to defend the people of Israel, the Israelis that paid so dearly with their lives. And indeed, the situation on the ground and our activities and what we are trying to do is to minimize that civilian impact, which is devastating to so many on the Palestinian side. But ultimately, Hamas, they opened a war with Israel. Israel will win this war. When we look forward, and when there is the prospect of ground operation, a ground mobilization to destroy Hamas, we will continue to minimize civilian casualties. But there will be civilian casualties because that is the nature of warfare in urban areas. And while each and every life that is taken is a tragedy, a true tragedy, it is our role to make sure Hamas can never hold the power of government of terrorism that they did. And they utilized all of the powers of government in order to implement their brutal attack, merciless murder, and abduction of innocents. Each of these innocent lives we are now still mourning, and still over 200 funerals a day, and there are still 100 people that are unaccounted for, that have been taken by Hamas or killed in their escape or assassinated in their action. And that is why we are in a new reality with regard to the relationship between Israel and the Gaza Strip. This is what needs to change. And indeed, the war will change that.
Lieutenant Colonel, the Al-Quds hospital says that Israel has told them that they have to evacuate the hospital because there could be an airstrike. Can you confirm that?
So there are ongoing conversations, calls throughout organizations and bodies, and indeed to the hospital over the last week, that we've been telling people to evacuate, to go south, precisely because we are broadening the scope of our strikes. And we don't need, you pointed out that there are 13,000, I think in your report, people holding up in the hospital. But if there is a strike that takes place near the hospital, for instance, and there is coincidental debris that falls out of that, there are 13,000 people, nothing to do with the hospital, just people holding up there that should be elsewhere, because we're encouraging people to get out of harm's way. We need to know.
Where can they go? Where is safe in Gaza right now? Where could they go?
The hospital. There is a question of what is safe and what is safer. Where do you jeopardize yourself and where do you keep safe? How do you take care of your family, or how do you maintain the threat to your family? And when we're telling people to go south, they should not stay in the north and say, okay, this is a hospital, because we've seen that when we do a strike adjacent to a place that is protected, there can be collateral damage caused, but not by the strike, but in the after effects of the strike. And that is precisely why we're telling people, move south. South is safer. South is safer in Gaza Strip today. That is precisely why people need to listen to us and not hope to be safe in a hospital, that even though we won't strike the hospital.
I understand we're getting word.
Ramifications of that happening. We don't want civilians to get caught up in this. But when we're telling people to evacuate, to go south, they need to take cover down south, not stay in the north.
We're getting word that the Rafah crossing at the south of Gaza, next to Egypt, is opening next hour, 10 a.m. local time. Have you heard that? Can you confirm that?
I can't confirm that. There have been rumors about that over the last few hours. As soon as that happens, then I'm sure we'll all see it with our own eyes.
We've seen so many protests across the globe calling for Israel to stand down on this ground incursion. Is that going to go ahead? Could there be other ways to track down and root out Hamas?
So, the expectation by people objecting to Israel's military operation that we raise a white flag and surrender to terrorism is an unrealistic one, but I'd say it's also indecent. We have the right to defend ourselves, and we have the obligation to make sure it can never happen again. That is a responsibility of any sovereign state, and it's the responsibility to enforce that is the military, and that is what we intend to do. So while we see the demonstrations that you talked about and asked about, and of course it's concerning, and I think a lot of it's to do with misrepresentation of the situation. and indeed the understanding that there is a war that is ongoing, but unfortunately, we did not ask for this war. We didn't want it. We did not initiate it. So much so that the military misunderstood what Hamas's intentions were with regard to the relationship with Israel. And that indeed will be investigated in the aftermath, how our intelligence understood that Hamas is not interested in a war. And that is why perhaps we were ill-prepared at the border and they were able to butcher and murder and massacre. And this is the reality, and this is how we got here, Linda. That is the core reason why there is a war now. Not because Israel wants to retake Gaza, but just because Israel needs to change the paradigm.
Lieutenant Colonel Peter Lerner, we appreciate your time. We'll have to leave it there for now. Thanks so much for joining us.
Have a good day.
You too. Well, the US president says humanitarian aid that has been stuck in Egypt for days should reach Gaza within the coming days. Anger is flaring in Rafah as the crucial crossing between Egypt and Gaza remains closed. The United Nations says the wait is now, quote, the difference between life and death for the people. CNN's chief international correspondent Clarissa Ward is in Rafah, where the mood is increasingly clear.